Okay, no.
All right,
Okay.
so tonight I'm really excited because we're going to do the actual lecture from President Ikeda on repaying debts, repaying debt of gratitude. But the question that I want to ask before I start reading the lecture is that what is the underlying message that the Daishonin is conveying here? We know that I've already been talking about the fact that it's the history of Buddhism. But what is the kicker that I got to last week when we finally finished? What's his basic message about this in this letter? What's his basic message? What was the point of conveying this to those two priests to go then have this read over the grave of Dozenbo?
The ultimate, this is it.
Huh?
Our religion, Nichiren's
Well,
religion is
he's
ultimate
already
it.
validated all of that. Yeah, what he's
Right.
basically done. Let me answer my own question then, so that I can get the point that I'm trying to make out. He basically has already validated historically and point by point, chronologically, why this teaching is what it is in the latter day and what he's doing in the latter day.
Right.
Yeah.
But most significantly, he says here, thus the flower will return to the root, and the essence of the plant will remain in the earth. The benefits that I have been speaking of, the benefits that I've been speaking of will surely accumulate in the life of the late Dozenbo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So the point is that based on dependent origination, we all give rise to one another in actuality. Why do I incarnate? I incarnate because of everybody else around me. That's actually the influence that draws me forth from Ku, from non-substantiality. All right? It's always the people that we come into contact with and the environment that calls us forth again into another incarnate form. Now, when we manifest as such, though, it would appear that we're all separate, right? We've all incarnated as separate temporary gatherings of the five component. But in essence, are we separate at all?
No.
No. So there is no separation between you and your teacher. There is no separation between you and your parents. There is no separation between you and anyone you want to be wise enough to realize that there is no separation between you and that. There's nothing on this earth that you're separate from. This is the whole principle of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. From a single law comes infinite variety, right? So when he's talking about the fact that this all will return, all of his fortune and benefit will return to Dozenbo, is that an automatic? Dozenbo doesn't have to do anything to receive that fortune? No, a causal relationship still has to manifest it, okay? But the fortune for it to be in the karmic path has already been established by the influence of another. Do you understand what I'm trying to explain to you? This is how the Buddha saves everybody. Because not everybody can become the Buddha in a single lifetime based on the first time they've heard the teaching, right? So there has to be an influence that keeps those common mortals. What's the difference between a common mortal and a Buddha? They're the same thing.
Right.
One is asleep, one is awake, right? So there has to be an influence for those common mortals to re-enter the realm of the 10th world. Do you understand? And that conduit is always the teachers, the relationships, the circumstances in life. This is what gives life meaning. What gives life meaning? Those that we know, the reality that we experience as life itself. You know, that's going to have that's going to have everything to do with our own happiness. All right? So do understand that when you think about all those people you wish chanted, you don't just have to think of it that way. You have a connection to them. You can influence them. Everybody that you think of that way, you are the Buddha to. How can they escape your influence? They cannot if you decide not to let go of them. This is the point. Okay? So that's why you take the vow to save all people, because you want to save everybody. Right? But there are certain individuals that will certainly have specific and direct karmic relationships with you just like Dozinbo did with Nichiren. Okay? Do you all understand the point that I'm trying to make? Now let's listen to President Ikeda. Okay? So what I'm going to go through, we're going to start with a lecture on page 221 of the Learning from the Writings of the Hope-Filled Teachings of Nichiren Daishonin. And I'm going to start by going through and reading the gray boxes first. So the first one is on page 224. Not the gray boxes that are the intro to the paragraphs, but the self-contained gray boxes. Page 224, it says, gratitude leads to happiness. Now that makes sense, right? Okay, but it is absolute. It is absolute. SGI President Ikeda is telling us, people who can express their gratitude are truly happy. A life that is always filled with appreciation is a bright and cheerful one. And it may be, be it when you are meeting with people, when you are, when someone gives you a lift in his or her car, or when you are at home with your family. Sincerely offering thanks is a sign of living truly happy lives. Where people embody such a sense of appreciation, they send out waves of happiness that envelop both themselves and others. So this is the principle of Eshofuni, right? To voice your appreciation, it is important to say thank you to your fellow members and to your friends. Leaders who take the members' sincere efforts for granted and assume a high-handed attitude toward them inevitably come to a deadlock because of their own arrogance. They bring bleakness and unhappiness to both themselves and others. The expression thank you contains the essence of happiness. Those who appreciate the heart of these two words and use them generously are surely more eloquent than the most skilled of speakers. All right, and I apologize, my eyes are doing some weird stuff. I'm having trouble reading right now. So then the next one is on page 226, the three treasures. It says, the three treasures in Nichiren Buddhism are the three things that all Buddhists should revere and serve. They are the Buddha, the law, or the Buddhist teachings, and the Buddhist order, the community of believers. In Sanskrit, they are known as the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The Buddha is one who is awakened to the truth of life and the universe. The Dharma, or law, means the teaching that the Buddha expounds in order to lead all people to enlightenment. The Sangha, or Buddhist order, is the group of believers that practices the Buddhist teachings, preserves the law, spreads it, and transmits it to future generations. The three treasures are endowed with the power to free people from all sufferings, and lead them to enlightenment. Traditionally, upon becoming Buddhists, people vowed to believe in and devote themselves to the three treasures. Continuing then on page 229, where it says, refuting the erroneous, revealing the true. To refute the erroneous and reveal the true means to challenge and prove false, erroneous Buddhist teachings and viewpoints, and bring to light the correct teachings. Nichiren Daishonin writes, if one fails to denounce the enemies of the Lotus Sutra, it will be impossible to attain the way. He teaches that the way to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime and to achieve the widespread propagation of the law is found in the struggle to denounce falsehood and proclaim the truth. Expanding on how this applies to our daily lives, SGI President Ikeda states, we must raise our voices loudly in protest against any scheme or design that tramples on human dignity, insults decent, ordinary people, and undermines humanity's concerted efforts for peace. We must courageously fight back through dialogue and the written and spoken word, making ourselves heard like fearless lions. Such actions not only lead us to eliminate negativity within, they help us eradicate negative karma. As Nichiren stated, those who fail to stand up against slander of the law when necessary become slanderers of the law themselves. Such people cannot attain Buddhahood. Only by battling supreme evil can we draw forth the brilliant life state of Buddhahood. So what was the point there? You cannot attain Buddhahood if you don't refute error. And in order to refute error, you must understand the teaching. Okay? That's the point. going to page 232, the 3 great secret laws. So, to keep your mouth shut and to figure it's good enough for you to know it and not want to make waves, don't want to hassle anybody, don't want to, that's the way to fail. That's not the way to succeed. All right? On page 232, the 3 great secret laws. The 3 great secret laws, the core principles of Nichiren Daishonin's teachings are the object of devotion of the essential teaching, the daimoku, invocation of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the essential teaching, and the sanctuary of the essential teaching. Here, again, and this is always important to remember, whenever we talk about essential teaching here, we're not talking about the second 14 chapters of the Lotus Sutra essential teaching. We're talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Here, essential teaching refers to the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the essential teaching of the latter day of the law. Nichiren established these 3 principles to enable all people in the latter day of the law to attain Buddhahood. They are called secret because they are implicit in the text of the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra and remained hidden or unknown until Nichiren revealed them. Nichiren regarded them as the vital or essential teaching that Shakyamuni Buddha transferred to Bodhisattva superior practices in the supernatural powers chapter of the sutra. The 3 great secret laws are related to 3 types of learning set forth in Buddhism. According to Buddhism, you have to master these 3 types of learning in order to attain Buddhahood. That's why you can attain Buddhahood in your present form with the Gohonzon. So it says the 3 great secret laws are related to the 3 types of learning set forth in Buddhism: precepts, meditation, and wisdom. The object of devotion corresponds to meditation, the sanctuary to precepts, and the daimoku to wisdom. Because embracing the object of devotion, the Gohonzon, is the only precept in Nichiren Buddhism. The Gohonzon, because embracing the object of devotion, the Gohonzon, is the only precept in Nichiren's teachings. The place where it is enshrined corresponds to the place where one vows to observe the Buddhist precepts. The daimoku, or the essential teaching, indicates the chanting of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with faith in the object of devotion. It includes chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo for oneself and teaching it to others. Thus, both the sanctuary and the daimoku are contained in the object of devotion, the 1 great secret law. Okay? And then going over to page 237, Nichiren Daishonin on compassion. He says, the great mercy refers to the sowing of the seeds of Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Because of this mercy of sowing the seeds, all other kinds of mercy follow just as shadows follow a form. And now Nichiren too dispenses this kind of mercy. So what did he just qualify there from the orally transmitted teachings? I'll read it again. It's very simple. The great mercy, okay, he didn't just say mercy, he says the great mercy. So now he's talking about the supreme, the ultimate mercy, just like talking about the great pure law, right? Mm-hmm. The great mercy refers to the sowing of the seeds of Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Because of this mercy of sowing the seeds, all other kinds of mercy follow just as shadows follow a form. And now Nichiren too dispenses this kind of mercy. Do you understand what he's saying?
The true mercy is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo.
True mercy is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Not feeding them, not taking any... Again, first and foremost is to plant the seed of Buddhahood. Mm-hmm. You can only do that through conveying and get them to say daimoku. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. You can clothe them, you can feed them, you can do anything else. That's not going to change their karma. Mm-hmm. Getting them to invoke daimoku from their life will connect them to daimoku for eternity. Okay? That's the greatest mercy because it lasts beyond this lifetime. Do you understand? He says, at what time, what moment should we ever allow ourselves to forget the compassionate vow of the Buddha, who declared, at all times I think to myself, and how can I cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way and quickly acquire the body of a Buddha? He says, I, Nichiren, have done nothing else but have labored solely to put the 5 or 7 characters of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo into the mouths of all the living beings of the country of Japan. In doing so, I have shown the kind of compassion that a mother does when she labors to put milk into the mouth of an infant child. So do you understand what he's saying there? Once again, there is no greater compassion than to do shakabuku. Period. 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 Because it forms a bond that lasts forever. There's nothing else you can do for someone. Holding their hand, being their good friend. If it doesn't include getting them to chant Daimoku, you short-sheeted them. You made yourself feel good. You didn't do what the Daishonin taught you to do in order to actualize some true benefit that's lasting to them in their life. Do you understand? It's not easy because nobody wants to talk about religious kinds of things at those moments.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Mm-hmm. But when you want to actually help somebody, rather than act like you're helping them, chant Daimoku before you talk to them and then get them to chant Daimoku with you. That's the ultimate. All right? So going back into the Gosho itself, the small portion that we'll be discussing tonight with President Ikeda's lecture. On page 221 of this book, On Repaying Debts of Gratitude. Kosenrufu, a great river enriching humanity eternally. Our victory as disciples is the greatest way to repay our gratitude to our mentor. In Japan, China, India, and all of the other countries of Jampavippa, every person, regardless of whether wise or ignorant, will set aside other practices and join in the chanting of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This teaching has never been taught before. Never been taught before. Here in the entire land of Jampavippa and in all the 2,225 years since the passing of the Buddha, not a single person chanted it. Nichiren alone, without sparing his voice, now chants Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The size of the waves depends upon the wind that raises them. The height of the flames depends upon the firewood, on how much firewood is piled on. The size of the lotuses depends upon the pond in which they grow, and the volume of rain depends on the dragons that make it fall. The deeper the roots, the more prolific the branches. The farther the source, the longer the stream. Now, but what's that referred to from the standpoint of our faith in Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? The deeper the roots, the more prolific the branches. Are there any deeper roots than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo?
No.
None. So, though all the branches relate to that individual source. The farther the source, the longer the stream. Is there a longer stream than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? No. Okay? It's the original state. That's what he just talked about there. The Chao dynasty lasted for 700 years because of the propriety and filial devotion of its founder, King Wen. The Qin dynasty, on the other hand, lasted hardly any time at all because of the perverse way of its founder, the first emperor of the Qin. If Nichiren's compassion is truly great and encompassing, in other words, if my teaching is correct, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo will spread for 10,000 years and more for all eternity, for it has the beneficial power to open the blind eyes of every living being in the country of Japan, and it blocks off the road that leads to the hell of incessant suffering. Its benefit surpasses that of Dingyo and Tentai and is superior to that of Nagarjuna and Mahakashayapa. 100 years of practice in the land of perfect bliss cannot compare to the benefit gained from one day's practice in the impure world. 2,000 years of propagating Buddhism during the former and middle days of the law are inferior to an hour of propagation in the latter day of the law. This is in no way because of Nichiren's wisdom, but simply because the time makes it so. In spring, the blossoms open. In autumn, the fruit appears. Summer is hot. Winter is cold. The season makes it so, does it not? Continuing President Ikeda's lecture on page 222. To repay one's debt of gratitude is the highest virtue. The highest virtue. So that's why this is a top 5 writing, because this is laying out to you what should be at the foremost point of your objective for your life. The foremost objective for your life should be to be a bodhisattva of the earth to the last moment of your life. Okay? Period. There's nothing that should come in front of that. To repay one's debt of gratitude is the highest virtue. That's the only way you can repay the debt of gratitude that you owe to the Gohonzon. To be the Buddha in this lifetime. To prove that the teaching is true. That it's correct. So that others can follow in your footsteps inspired by your life. Not just the teaching of somebody that lived 700 years ago. You understand? They can see the teaching living, working right now. Okay? As we each deepen our faith in the mystic law, break through our fundamental darkness, and live true to our greater self. What is our greater self? Our Buddhahood. We're bodhisattvas of the earth. We're not common mortals, right? We will come to feel boundless appreciation for all those around us and for all who have nurtured and helped us become who we are. And you will. If you don't feel that now, you will. If you attain actual Nichiren Sons, and there's no way for you not to think about all that. And we will confidently make our way along the invigorating path of recognizing and repaying our debts of gratitude. In contrast, those who fail to refresh their faith, listen to this as you think about the people you know that have been chanting for 20 years and you don't see any real difference in their life. In contrast, those who fail to refresh their faith. Yeah, I'm talking to everybody at this table specifically because that's why I'm talking. All right? In contrast, those who fail to refresh their faith. What's refresh their faith? Never forget what the prime point is. Yeah. Don't fall into habit. Don't forget you're the Buddha. Don't think that the Gohonzon's outside of you. Don't think that this teaching applies to something that you will be someday rather than who you are right now in this moment, right? He's saying, those who fail to refresh is the daily process of advance. That's why we never stop. We don't chant enough to be able to not chant anymore. We have to keep chanting and keep chanting and keep chanting because we're constantly revealing the wisdom that has always been there for the sake of all those that will listen to us. And there are only very specific people that will. And that's why you must. It's not for you. It's not all about you. You're the Buddha. Okay? You have relationships that precede this lifetime that you must create the continuum for. You're the key to so much more than you have any concept of. Really. Could Nichiren, even though he's saying if Nichiren's compassion is truly great, then, okay, he doesn't even presuppose it. You validate this truth with your life on an ongoing basis. So he says, their ability to appreciate, he says, in contrast, those who fail to refresh their faith, who give in to negativity, and are shackled by attachments to their lesser self, their wants, their desires, the me. Where's my benefit? Okay? Invariably become ruled by arrogance. Cowardice. They're looking to blame rather than to accept the responsibility and fight through to victory. Okay? That's the way you're always victorious, by always being responsible and always never giving up. Or anger. Okay? Once again, lower 4. As they descend from where they were, their ability to appreciate the goodness of others wanes. They become cynical. They think they know what they don't know. Until eventually they neither recognize nor repay the kindnesses others have done for them. They don't register anymore. They've become dull. They've become not awake. They've gone back to sleep. Do you understand? It all comes down to either living based on the greater self, being the Buddha, being a bodhisattva of the earth, if nothing else, and trying to achieve that actual Ichinen Sanzen, or remaining attached to the lesser self, a common mortal. Ultimately, this difference in the fundamental orientation of our attitude determines whether we lead lives of gratitude or ingratitude. Starting the lecture. The lives of genuine Buddhist practitioners shine with appreciation and gratitude. Genuine Buddhist practitioners. Note he makes that qualification. Genuine. Not seemingly. Those people that actually are doing it, whether they are seen or not. He says, written on July 21st, 1276, in honor of Nichiren's late teacher Dozenbo, Nichiren vowed to become the wisest person in Japan, and with the firm belief that through thoroughly studying the teachings of Buddhism and identifying the keys to solve the suffering of birth and death, he could enable his parents to realize true happiness. So it started with his desire for his parents. To repay his debt of gratitude to all living beings, he established the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, taking on the arduous battle of refuting the erroneous and revealing the true in the realm of Buddhism. In addition, he recognized and made efforts to repay this debt of gratitude to his country, the three treasures, and his former teacher, Dozenbo. Recognizing debts of gratitude and expressing the Buddhist spirit of cultivating the recognizing debts of gratitude express the Buddhist spirit of cultivating the richest possible humanity while repaying that gratitude is the hallmark of a life of wisdom that comes from conquering fundamental ignorance. Hence, the lives of genuine Buddhist practitioners always shine with the inner light of appreciation and gratitude. Throughout his life, Nichiren Daishonin demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to gratitude, to repaying his gratitude as a human being and as a Buddhist. He writes, "Ever since I began to study the law handed down from Shakyamuni Buddha and undertook the practice of the Buddhist teachings, I have believed it is most important to understand one's obligation to others and made it my first duty to repay such debts of kindness." Nichiren vowed to become the wisest person in all Japan. And upon entering Seichoji at a young age, diligently applied himself to his studies in order to repay his debt of gratitude to his mother and father. With firm conviction, Nichiren thoroughly studied the teachings of Buddhism and identified the key to solving the sufferings of birth and death. And he sought to help his parents realize true happiness. Moreover, it was to repay his gratitude to all living beings that, after 2 decades of intense Buddhist study, he established the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and, understanding the scope of his perilous battle, he refuted the erroneous and revealed the true. In terms of Buddhism, discovered in the depths of the Lotus Sutra the universal law of life for the enlightenment of all people and of all living things, Nichiren lived as the sutra taught, embodying it in his own life. Furthermore, because he recognized his debt of gratitude to his country, he strictly admonished the various schools of Buddhism that slandered the law and went against the Buddha's original intent. And he remonstrated with the rulers of Japan, who stood idly by while the people suffered and the country fell into confusion and disorder. Repaying one's debt of gratitude to one's country does not mean slavish submission to the rule of the state. In modern terms, we can consider country to referring to society. Nichiren's effort to establish the correct teaching for the peace of the land, bringing about the fundamental reformation needed for creating a better society, can be considered a means of repaying the debt of gratitude to the country. After surmounting life-threatening persecutions and casting off his transient status as an ordinary person to reveal his true identity as the Buddha of the latter day of the law, Nichiren revealed the Gohonzon as the object of devotion and manifestation of his original state of life. He also revealed and established the 3 great secret laws: as the framework for spreading the teachings of the Lotus Sutra throughout the latter day, determinedly carrying out the struggle to reveal the correct law hidden in the depths of the Lotus Sutra, and that would lead all people to enlightenment. He took on the momentous battle of repaying his gratitude to the three treasures. In addition, the revelation of the three great secret laws is said to signify Nichiren fully repaying his debt of gratitude to his parents, to all living beings, and to the nation, as well as making a fresh undertaking in his life toward the realization of worldwide Kosen-Rufu, the means of repaying gratitude owed to humankind in the world. I'm sorry I'm reading so poorly tonight. My eyes are really messing with me. We may view Nichiren's entire life then as a grand endeavor to repay debts of gratitude. In this sense, on repaying debts of gratitude, he discusses this in detail in order to express his appreciation to his former teacher, Dozenbo. A teaching containing matters of the utmost importance highlights Nichiren describes his ardent pursuit for Buddhism in his youth and gives somebody else want to read for me tonight, because my eyes are like going like this. I'm really having trouble seeing. Let me continue. Let me just try.
Okay.
Nichiren describes his ardent pursuit for Buddhism in his youth and gives a compassionate account of his subsequent accounts. Pardon me.
Should we turn on the light?
I think that is really my problem. Pardon me. I know that.
Because our camera.
I just can't see.
Okay.
Is it too bright for the camera?
Is it too bright for the camera?
It's okay.
No, it's okay.
All right.
It's better.
Yes, it is much better. Where was I?
Nichiren describes
I'm
his
sorry.
ardent.
Okay, let me just start again.
Okay.
A treasure containing matters of the utmost importance. A treatise containing matters of the utmost importance. I'm so sorry. Highlights. Nichiren describes his ardent pursuit of Buddhism in his youth and gives a compassionate, comprehensive account of his. Somebody else read. I can't read it. Sorry.
Account of his subsequent efforts. Let's go, George.
Okay. Nichiren describes his ardent pursuit of Buddhism in his youth and gives a comprehensive account of his subsequent efforts to spread the mystic law. He explains Nam-myoho Renge Kyo of the three great secret laws, which are the object of devotion of the essential teaching, the daimoku of the essential teaching, and the sanctuary of the essential teachings. In June 1276, Nichiren Daishonin received news of the death of Dozenbo, under whom he had first studied Buddhism at Seichoji. He immediately set about composing this treatise in honor and appreciation of his late teacher. In late July, he sent the completed work to the priest Jokembo and the Jijobo, who during his early years of study under Dozenbo had been Nichiren's seniors and who later became his followers. Nichiren attached a message instructing that they should have the text read aloud before Dozenbo's grave. In the cover letter to repaying debts of gratitude, the Daishonin writes in the enclosed treatise, "I have written matters of the utmost importance." WND 1, 737. This writing contains a detailed description of his ardent pursuit of Buddhism in his youth, along with a comprehensive account of his subsequent efforts to spread the mystic law. He also clarifies the immeasurable benefits of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo of the three great secret laws, which constitutes the great law that will lead all people to enlightenment, and that is to be propagated throughout the eternal future of the later day. and pays tribute to his first teaching by stating that these benefits in its entirety will return to Dozenbo.
Let me try to go from here. This treatise can be viewed as a record of Nichiren's lifetime struggles to refute the erroneous and reveal the true. It closes with the triumphant proclamation that the path to enlightenment in the latter day of the law is all through the Buddhism of the three great secret laws. The culmination of the Daishonin struggle to propagate the law is the revelation of the foundation of Kosen Rufu, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the three great secret laws. The first of the three great secret laws is the object of devotion of the essential teaching. In the Gohonzon, the Daishonin embodied the supremely noble life state of his own enlightenment. He did so in order to enable each person to become aware of his state of life that inherently and equally exists in all human beings. Now, do you understand what he just said there? That's what I was talking about a while ago. I'll read this again. The first of the three great secret laws is the object of devotion of the essential teachings. In the Gohonzon, Nichiren embodied the supremely noble life state of his own enlightenment, okay? He did so in order to enable each person, okay, to become aware of this state of life that inherently and equally exists in all human beings. So he didn't qualify a life state that is separate from yours, okay? So it's the same. It's exactly the same. There's nothing about Nichiren that's different than you are, other than he's the original teacher and you're not. Okay? The second of the three great secret laws is the Daimoku of the essential teaching. This consists of our chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and teaching others to do the same. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo being the name of this noble state of life or Buddha nature. Do you understand? The name of this Buddha nature. And so, is it your name too then?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Right? Just as much as it is Nichiren's name. Do you understand? In the same way that it's Nichiren's name, it's your name. Okay? Your name isn't Nichiren. Your name is something other than Nichiren. But Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is your name. Just like Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is Nichiren's name. Do you understand? That's the point he's trying to make. The sanctuary, so again, you are the Buddha exactly as you are. This is the point that's the only point that is of any consequence there. You have the only thing holding you back is you, always. Yes. The sanctuary of the essential teaching, the third of the three great secret laws, serves as the foundation for constructing a harmonious community of believers, in Sanskrit the Sangha, in which members encourage one another to maintain firm faith in Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, as we are right now, vow to propagate the law, and actualize the principle of establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land. That is what we're doing as we're sitting here together. Based on these three elements, practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism strive to realize Kosen Rufu by bringing the brilliance of the infinitely precious mystic law to shine in people's lives and in the land where they reside. They bring it forth. It's always there. They make it visible. They bring it out. They identify it. They share it with others. They show it to everyone. In the short passage we are studying, Nichiren first explains that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the three great secret laws is the great teaching that will spread throughout the diverse countries of the world. He also states that this universal teaching transcends distinctions and can be practiced by anyone, irrespective of their understanding of Buddhism, or irrespective of any of their habits, or irrespective of their nationality, or wealth, or gender, or anything. All right? He says, then page 227, first column, chanting and spreading the mystic law without sparing one's voice. What is that? Highlights, to cause the teachings of of the Lotus Sutra to spread widely in the defiled age of the latter day, we must defeat the fundamental darkness in our own lives and teach others to do likewise. So why do you have to defeat fundamental darkness in your own life? Why?
To show the power of the law.
Not only that, to show other people how to do the same thing. If you came here with this great karma that didn't require the overcoming of fundamental darkness, because you already overcame all your fundamental darkness, right? You don't have any problems like everybody else. Okay? How are you going to have the experience to be able to know what those people that you're encouraging are going through? How can you have the experience to know what they're facing and what they're feeling? You can't. Okay? So it's what he says here is very, very important. He says, for the sake of the others. Merely chanting Nam Myoho Renge... Where am I? Right there. I'm still in. Okay. Highlights. To cause the teachings of the Lotus Sutra to spread widely in the defiled age of the latter day, we must defeat the fundamental darkness in our own lives and teach others to do likewise. After declaring the establishment of his teaching, Nichiren, while encountering many severe persecutions, continued to chant and teach others to do the same. So this isn't about waiting until there are no more problems or until you've proven the fact that you're the ultimate victor in all things because you chant. You don't start then. You do all of this concurrent with everything at the same time. It's not in. It's in. What is it? It's in parallel. It's not in. Whatever. The power of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo to endure for eternity, because the power of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo will endure for eternity, because the law itself is infinitely profound, and because of the selfless struggles Nichiren underwent to establish and propagate it. Nichiren Daishonin observes, people in the entire land of Jampa-vipa, in all the 2,225 years since the passing of the Buddha, not a single person chanted it. Nichiren alone, without sparing his voice, now chants Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. A universal teaching will always spread with the time, when the time is right, and when a person willing to give his or her life to propagate it appears. Nichiren worked tirelessly without sparing his voice to teach people about the path he had pioneered. As a result, he established the three great secret laws, the core principles of the supreme teaching to be propagated in the latter day. We must never forget that Nichiren's people-centered Buddhism has flourished solely because of unceasing efforts to spread the law. Now, I just wanted to make this point. What is he actually also letting you know? He's letting you in on here something. Let me go back here. He says, Nichiren Daishonin observes here in the land of Jampa-vipa, in all of the 2,225 years since the passing of the Buddha, not a single person chanted it. Nichiren alone, now without sparing his voice, now chants Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. The President Ikeda says, a universal teaching will always spread when the time is right, and when a person willing to give his or her life to propagating it appears. Is he just talking about Nichiren Daishonin there? No. Who's he also talking about? But as much as anything, what he's really speaking of is President Toda and President Makaguchi. Okay? Because they were willing to give their lives. That's what he's talking about there. He's saying a universal teaching will spread when the time is right. World War II. Everything's in the shits. Okay? And when a person willing to give his or her life to propagate it appears. Okay? That wasn't Daisaku Ikeda, even though he would be willing to do so. That was those two first presidents, right? So, Nichiren worked tirelessly without sparing his voice to teach people about the path he had pioneered. As a result, he established the three great secret laws, the core principles of the supreme teaching to be propagated in the latter day. We must never forget that Nichiren's people-centered Buddhism has flourished solely because of unceasing efforts to spread the law. In other words, don't ever forget that there will always be a debt of gratitude to the people that have preceded you, because they're the ones that have maintained and sustained the teaching in the absence of Nichiren's being alive, right? Okay, so merely chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo by oneself without encouraging others to do the same, will not cause the law to spread widely among the people in the evil age of the latter day. Unless we can defeat our own fundamental darkness, be the Buddha rather than being just a believer. Do you understand? That's what he's encouraging you. He's be the teacher, be the Buddha. Unless we can defeat our own fundamental darkness, which keeps us from understanding our true identity, and teach others to do the same, to also understand that they are the Buddha exactly as they are, there will be no concrete transformation in people's lives. Because that's the transformation, is understanding you're not a common mortal. Therefore, after declaring the establishment of his teaching, Nichiren continued to chant and teach others to do the same without sparing his voice, because it was never about him figuring it out. It was about him figuring out what, for everybody's sake, right? Consequently, he encountered tremendous persecution. Undeterred, he advanced fearlessly along the path of his mission to propagate the mystic law in the latter day, which is also yours. His unrelenting efforts to speak out and spread the correct teaching epitomize the spirit of not begrudging one's life. All right? He's our example. That's what we're supposed to be like. Not like he's like the only one that had to do that. No, we all have to do that. He then continues an example, he then uses an example of natural phenomena, such as how the strength of the wind determines the size of the waves. Words by the great teacher Tiantai and events from Chinese history to substantiate his prediction that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo will spread into the future as a result of his selfless efforts to spread the law. Now, once again, he's saying all this in the absence of the SGI, of any of the things that have happened since World War II that have created this big wellspring of people chanting. Among these examples, he looked at the following metaphors. The deeper the roots, the more prolific the branches. The farther the source, the longer the stream. Originally found in Tentai's words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, these aphorisms illustrate the wisdom of the Buddha's. These aphorisms illustrate that the wisdom of the Buddhas is infinitely profound and immeasurable. The roots and the source symbolize this wisdom, while the prolific branches and the length of the stream represent its broad and far-reaching workings. In the record of the orally transmitted teachings, Nichiren states that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the essence of this wisdom of the Buddhas. Tiantai uses this metaphor of roots and branches to teach the principle that the more profound a teaching, the more people it will have the power to lead to enlightenment over a long period of time. The Chinese history cited by Nichiren offers a similar point. He explains that the Chao dynasty flourished for 700 years because its founder, King Wen, was a person of propriety and filial devotion. By contrast, the Qian dynasty, which was the first to unify China, fell after a mere 15 years. Nichiren declares that this was because of the tyrannical rule of its founder, the first emperor of the Qin dynasty. In other words, success hinges on whether the founder cherishes above all the welfare of the people and establishes this compassion as a lasting tradition. Enduring prosperity depends on the depth of Enduring prosperity depends on the depth of the country's guiding ideals and principles and the earnestness of those who inherit them. Do you understand what he's saying there? What's he saying there? In other words, success. Okay, so he's saying to make this happen, to make this propagation for all people, for Kosen Rufu to occur. In other words, for Kosen Rufu to occur, success hinges on whether the founder cherishes above all the welfare of the people and establishes his compassion as a lasting tradition, which is what Nichiren did. which is what each teacher does. All right? Enduring prosperity depends on the depth of the country's guiding ideals and principles and the earnestness of those who inherit them. So in other words, it's very, very important that those people that manifest, that do understand this, not stop, that they continue to find others that will then also continue to lead others on and on and on. Since the earliest times, religious teachings have been expounded with the aim of relieving human suffering. There is a significant difference, however, between a teaching that clarifies the fundamental cause of suffering and one that fails to do so. Teachings that offer only a shallow understanding of life's truths will have a limited scope and be short-lived. In contrast, the teachings of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the fundamental law of life. Therefore, at present and for eternity, it will lead people to enlightenment. The power of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo will endure for eternity because the law itself is infinitely profound and because of the selfless struggles Nichiren underwent to establish and propagate it. Therefore, there is depth in because there is depth in the teaching accompanied by a profound struggle, Kosen Rufu will advance and be achieved. Our Kosen Rufu movement today reaches 192 countries and territories. This was realized because the SGI members This was realized because the SGI members around the world have striven tirelessly in the same spirit as the first three Soka Gakkai presidents, who inherited their unyielding commitment in faith directly from Nichiren Daishonin. Such strong faith is the wellspring of Kosen Rufu and happiness for oneself and others. How is it that millions of SGI members around the globe now strive for the lofty cause of Kosen Rufu? It is because Tanesaburo Makaguchi and Josei Toda, our first and second presidents, dedicated themselves to propagating the law in exact accord with Nichiren's spirit and taught us to do the same. For us, the deeper the roots, the farther the source, mean having faith that is deep and firm. With the power of faith, we can definitely triumph over any of the three obstacles and four devils that may assail us in the course of our life struggles and in our work for Kosen Rufu. If we maintain a strong sense of purpose and determine to fight for Kosen Rufu, we will see negativity or devilish functions for what they are and prevail over them. Belief is the sharp sword that cuts through any and all obstacles. In addition, the more prolific the branches and the stronger the stream indicates that if we have courageous faith to remain undefeated by obstacles, we will enjoy not only success and prosperity in our own lives, but our victory in turn will form the foundations for the success and prosperity of our descendants for generations to come. Accordingly, striving for Kosen Rufu here and now becomes the cause for happiness and prosperity in the present and the future. All our hard work and effort to share Nichiren Buddhism is transformed into good fortune for our families and loved ones throughout eternity. This is the law of causality based on the mystic law. And I think I will stop there.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
All right. So, yeah, my eyes are too burnt out anyhow. So we'll stop and continue on page 231 the next time. And I'm so sorry, my eyes are so bad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.